Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Tepid Takes, a show where three NBA guys get together with one take each to discuss whether or not it is hot, tepid, or stone cold. And if we can, if they can persuade the other guys, they get a point for each vote, and there'll be a running leaderboard throughout the 6 episodes we're going to do this. At the moment, Chris on the last episode got 2 out of 2 from me and Bob with his vote. We didn't do so well. Me and Bobby both with 0 each. Chris, remind us, what was your take last episode, mate?
That Giannis stitched up the Raptors and the Heat, and it's still to this day.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
To this day,
it's a new episode.
It was going to be a Raptors tape, but I was like, I can't because it's got to be under half an hour. It was just too long otherwise. When the download time, I better take it.
Yeah, that's it. So, you persuaded both of us, so you got 2 points for that. Bob, what was yours?
Mine was a little bit hotter than that. Well. Mine was a little bit hotter than that. It was that I believe that the Phoenix Suns were going to finish top of the West. Not come out of the West, but finish top of the standings come the end of the regular season.
They're still doing okay, but that's maybe looking a bit chilly.
They've only had a wobble recently. They were flying.
Yeah, they were actually top. I was looking like a genius for a little while.
Yeah, it was. That's it. Absolutely. My one now, but apologies. There's been a big gap between episode 1 and 2. Mainly my fault because I went and picked up COVID, so we had a long layoff.
Selfish.
Sorry about that. But my take last time out was that James Harden, wherever he went, because he was obviously still in Houston at the time, wherever he went, that team that he got traded to, which we now know is the Nets, we didn't then, was going to win the NBA title this season, and that Harden would also pick up MVP. Maybe not looking great at the moment, but we'll see. A long way to go. It's still got some legs, I think, that one. But on the night, that got 0 as well. So Chris leads the leaderboard. So a new round, a new set of takes. Who's going up first? We're going to have Bob. We're going to have you up this week.
Yeah, why not?
You ready?
Why not? Yeah, I'm ready. I don't think this one is as hot as the last one, but my take is this. I believe that looking at the current standings and the way things are set, the way things have gone, we're rapidly approaching halfway through the season now, unbelievably, that I think that the New Orleans Pelicans and the Dallas Mavericks are going to knock out the Warriors and the Spurs out of the playoff spots. So not come playoffs or anything like that. I don't even think that the two teams, the Spurs and the Warriors, are going to make the playoffs. And I believe that the two teams that are going to replace them right now, that could chop and change, don't forget the standings, but I do believe that the Pels and the Mavs are going to take those two out and finish in the playoffs, which it might not seem that hot given that everyone, looking at the Warriors, everyone kind of wrote them off this season, and they've still been good thanks to mainly one guy doing what he does. But I don't think anybody had this Mav season in particular. I just think that it's just wildly off at the minute.
Yeah.
But you can't write them off. I'm sorry, you can't write them off. And I still believe they've got a better team than someone like the Warriors. I still think they've got their better team than the Spurs. And the Pels, they're still young and they're still a little bit all over the place. And I think you're seeing that, aren't you, right now more than ever, is that team's disjointed as hell despite quite a few moves in the off-season that just happened to make them a little bit more fluid. I don't think it's the hottest take, but I think a lot of people have written off, particularly Pels, but even the Mavs in some way. And I just think that the Mavs in particular are going to get better. It's a bit like Miami and probably Toronto. I know it's easy to say because it's 2 fans in the chat right now. Started off slow, but I don't see that happening. And I know it's Steph Curry, and I know he's playing in MVP form, but I just think it's going to get too much for him towards the end.
Okay, so as it stands at the moment, just looking at the West Conference, you've got the Spurs in 6th with a record of 14-11. This is as it stands right now. Warriors in 8th, in that 8th seed, 14-12. Mavericks are down in 11th, 12-14. Pelicans are down in 12th with 11-13. There is actually only 3 games between 5th and 12th, which is quite crazy. But your take then is that the Warriors and the Spurs will drop out and they'll be replaced by Mavericks and Pels.
That's what I'm saying. And it's only the only reason I say, I know it sounds when you say, oh, it's only 3 games between them. I understand it's not like they've got to overcome the odds to get there. But I think the teams that are currently in those playoffs, other than those 2, are locks, in my opinion. I think they're making the playoffs. So that's kind of what I'm saying is I think, yes, it's not hard, is it? You go on a run and you could be 5th in the standings.
Yeah.
But I just think that all those other teams might chop and change, but I think they're locks. Yeah. Now, just going back to my sales pitch, I still think the Warriors have got something to do. I still think they're going to do something. I think they're quite actively trying to do something. So that could have an asterisk. But for now, as things stand, I'm shocked at the Mavs, and things have got a little bit better for them, but I'm still shocked. And I still think Pels with Zion and that team will, I know the Spurs are consistency with that great coach, but I think it will fizzle out.
I think for me, the Pels is the tricky one there. I think the Mavericks will come good. There's too much talent there for them not to start climbing the leaderboard. And as you've said, there's not they haven't got a huge way to go. They only got to put a win streak together, and they're looking a lot better. Defensively, they're struggling, but I think Mavericks will be fine. It's the Pels for me. Again, it was a bit like last year. They just still look a bit too raw for me.
It's a tougher sell, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tougher sell. So I think that's the sticking point for me at the moment. Spurs are looking good. They always make it, as we know. They didn't last year, which is the first year in about 1,000 years they didn't. And the Warriors, as you've already pointed on there, which is what I was going to say, is that I think there'll be something. They'll do something in before trade deadline. And with Steph Curry in such hot form, I think they'll be fine personally. So this is a tricky one for me. Before I give my answer, Chris, what are you thinking on this?
On each team, the one thing that worries me about the Warriors is they've got no margin for error whatsoever. Yeah. Like Steph's averaging what is it, like 40 the last 10 games, like going off, and they're winning games by 7 or 8. You've got one of their teammates today celebrating before he's passed it to him and it's gone in. It was hilarious.
It's not his teammate, isn't it, Juan?
Sorry, Juan. Sorry, he did call out Bleacher Report, and when me and Bleacher Report, we're getting on in a minute. No one trusts anything from Bleacher Report, and there you go, he's been called out. They could make a move, but if he gets injured like he did last year, and I'm still bad blood because I had him in my fantasy and I finished because he broke his hand. But he's playing unbelievable. But Dallas for me will come good, like you say. I think, Bob, with Seth Curry, I don't know, will they admit that they messed up here? I don't know if I can swear on it. Whether they fucked up. Well,
he didn't have to do it that hard. Didn't have to go that hard.
Sorry, I'm all in. Whether they messed up basically because the team is just not the same. Obviously Porzingis has missed time. I got no qualms about them making it. The Pelicans, like, what are they actually doing? Like, I don't actually know. The reason why I don't know is, like, are they hoarding picks, or are they basically building for the future? Are they keeping it as it is? Then they're trading JJ Redick, they're trading Eric Bledsoe. What are they actually doing? They're like dipping their toe in. Yeah. I don't really know. It's like they go full OKC and they stop what they got, or they want to be competitive under Zion. Like, I'm just watching them, and they beat us too, Dan. So typically, it was just like they're a good team on their day. But then you see them, and then like where they are now, it's like I understand what the other teams' processes are. Like the Spurs will always be a 7 or 8, or 6 or 7, 8 out of 10 because they're coached by Pops. They're always going to be decent. The Warriors, I think, rest on Curry and whether they make another move. The Dallas will be in, but I don't know what the Pelicans' end goal is here because they're in between.
I feel like they did a load of stuff, didn't they, to try and, we got to get Zion. Because they probably know that Zion's probably never not going to stay with the Pels his whole career. So I think they probably.
I think they probably be a Laker or nothing. Be a Laker. But what I'm saying is, go on, Bob.
I just think that they rushed into a load of deals because they thought, right, we need to make sure that Zion knows we're all in on him. But I think they signed just a completely wrong players, and now it's like, oh shit, we got to move some stuff around so that we don't staple ourselves with this bad fit of a team.
Like taking on like Steven Adams and like, what is it, like 14 or 15 million a season? It's like, why? Like you pay Zion small ball anyway. Like I know they wanted to get the pick and maybe they took it on because of that, but then they paid him. It's like you take him on and you move him, but they paid him and like I didn't really understand anyway. And then you listen to various podcasts and they're like, I don't really get the move really. But one thing's for sure, Ingram is a special player. I didn't think he would be this player. And I've been really impressed with him every time I've watched him.
Yeah.
He's annoyingly good. Yeah,
I think Chris has sort of summarised it really well there. They're just they're an oddity. I said we're not really sure what they're trying to achieve. For me, they're a talented team. They could beat anybody on their day, but then they'll go and lose to the Pistons or the Wizards. And I know you could say that about a lot of teams, especially this year. But I just don't think they can sustain it enough to become a playoff team. So that's where they fall short. I don't have any problems with the Mavs. I think they'll come good. And I also don't see Golden State getting worse. I actually see them getting better as long as they can stay healthy.
Giannis is an injury,
I can see them being higher than they are now. I think I can see them seeding around 6th. So I'm quite high on Warriors again. So for me, I'll vote. That'll be a 0. That'll be a no for me. Not having that one, Bob. Sorry, mate. Chris, what do you reckon?
No, same, unfortunately, Bob. Sorry, mate.
All right. So stuck on 0 again. So
tactical.
Okay.
I like it.
Right, Chris, do you want to go next?
I'll go next. Okay.
0.
Get it in early. Right, I'm not really sure if this is going to be such a shock because they've started quite mixed, but they are one of the favourites to win it all. And my take is that the Brooklyn Nets won't get out of the East as currently constructed. So, yes, okay. I don't know if this is going to be a shock, but I wrote down some notes, make sure I don't miss anything. So, since the Harden trade, they are 8-6. They currently have the best offensive rating in NBA history. Did either of you know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did know that, only because I saw it a day or so ago.
Right.
And then the flip side.
And what comes with that is they've also got the worst defensive rating of all time.
Yep.
Right. And having played, obviously we played them recently and watched them a couple of games, the crazy game against the Wizards, and they are box office to watch, but they are an absolute shambles at the back. They haven't got every defender, barring probably KD, who's coming off a really big injury, is an average or below average defender. So he's not the sole reason, but going out in that deal was Jarrett Allen. So what he gave them, the versatility, he was a third of their rebounding per game, and he was 38% of their blocks across the season. So you've got no rim protection. You've got DeAndre Jordan, and okay, he's good for a lob every now and then, but that's all he can give you, really. Yeah, you're going to play Jeff Green at the 5, and Jeff Green's not big enough to play the 5, so they play small ball. So my concern is who, when you match up in a playoff, so who's going to stop Embiid in a Sixers series? Who's going to guard Giannis in a Bucks series? Who's going to stop AD and Bron in a potential finals? And most importantly, who's going to stop Mason Plumlee in a Pistons series?
Brilliant.
It's very important. Very important. We need to hear from the fans and see what they think about this. No. Look, I completely understand why they went all in, but I think they missed the trick by getting. It sounds stupid. They got Harden, which is an incredible player, but what they needed for fit wasn't offense. To me, who they needed was Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday fit them absolutely perfect. And it sounds stupid. You had a top 5 player in the NBA, but it's so unbalanced. It's just a shootout. Who can score more? Basically, if they would have got him, they would have had a guard who can basically lock down the opposing player's best perimeter player, and that can prove invaluable if they have a cold spot. I mean, they're averaging 120 points, but they're averaging 121 and a half they give up.
Yeah.
So, like, heaven forbid they have a couple of misses or one of them's having an off day, and they're just running through. There's no resistance. It's crazy. For me, like, the regular season is all about. It's all about offense. It's all about spectacular dunks, and some people defend, some people don't. But when you get to the playoffs and you see each other potentially 7 times in a series, and they can scheme for you and they take away all the things you're good at, and it comes down to half-court stuff, it's all about a defense. And the problem is, like, for me, it's just what the famous saying is: defense wins championships. And I just think it's literally that. Let's be honest, they can outscore anyone, but I'm just worried that unless they add someone, then I don't see them getting past a Sixers or a Bucks, because, like, you've got Giannis who can try and defend Durant? Who's going to do Embiid and things like that?
They'll have a field day.
They've got mismatches and things like that. But would they have the bottle? Because considering he's playing amazing, but someone like Kyrie moving him for a centre or a defensive wing or a guard or something like that. But I don't think they will, because he come as a package with KD.
Yeah.
But like, they could well do it. But I see a big hole where they're going to be in trouble when it slows down, I think, later in the playoffs.
It's such a tough one, because literally the Nets fans will just argue, well, don't worry about that. How are they going to score? How are they going to guard our three? Especially when it comes to the playoffs, when the Nets probably won't really care where they seed. It's all about once it ramps up. They'll just look at everything as though we'll blow our opponent out of the water. Doesn't matter how many they'll score. Whereas every non-Nets fan, and to be honest, no, even Nets fans will see the other side of the argument and say exactly what you just said there. So there's Embiid, Giannis, etc. will have an absolute field day, because they won't be able to do anything to stop them.
One thing I forgot to add is that obviously the other team has to be able to score to keep up with them.
Yeah,
I get that, but as I said, you're not always clicking all night. And as I said, if you're not going to get out in transition, and it is slowed down into a grinding halt, and we've all been in them series where games are won like 95, 97 and stuff like that. When, as I said, are they going to be able to put up a fight at all? But as I said, you've got history on your side one way, which it could be irrelevant. But I don't think to this day there's been. I swear I read something. I think teams that have won titles have always been a top 10 offense and have never been lower than like half of the pack. They're dead last. Like, it's never been done. And it seems mental when they're averaging what they are, but watching them, I think they got frailted big time.
Yeah, that's a pretty haunting stat if you're a Nets fan in that case. Bob, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it is like, as you say, it's a flip of a coin with them. So it's one of those things where they're a team that is obviously they're historically the best offense you've ever seen. I think they have got to come out and either blow you out early doors, or the flip side to it is as you say, Chris, is if it's a close playoff game. I know what you're saying, that 95, a minute and a half to go or something is quite unrealistic. But if it is, there's not many players. There's not many. There's not much in terms of three players that you could hand the ball to at any given moment. Like, how do you defend that? So if those games are close in the playoffs, you've got three of arguably some of the most clutch players some in NBA history and some in the NBA today. I just say I have the same worries as you. Is if a team like Sixers or someone who's got like Giannis, like Bam or someone like that, if they're just aggressive all night, that's the problem, isn't it? How are they ever going to stop that? So the Nets have either got to come out and just blow the doors off straight away, and you just can't keep up with them offensively, no matter what you do the other end. Or if they can keep it close, it's a game of, well, we've got more clutch players than you have. So I completely see what you're saying. It's for Nets, they backed themselves into that corner, right? They backed themselves into the corner where they've said, you know what, we're going to be abysmal defensively. I'm sure they'll try and do something to try and plug the gap, but they're not going to get anyone that's going to make a huge difference. I mean, they just signed Norvell Pell, so it's not like it's getting...
That's the sort of standard it's going to be.
It's not... What do you expect also when you've got Steve Nash and you've got Mike D'Antoni as your coaches?
Exactly.
Like,
that, to me,
neither of them have ever probably run a defensive during their life. One's elite point guard, and one was one of the best offensive coaches in the league. It was never going to happen, was it?
They are always going to have that danger. It's like a bit like the Warriors a few years ago. It could be up 30 and that could just be over in a matter of a quarter. But I think defense does win championships. So I think they're a team that is going to be fascinating come playoffs. It could either be so destructively amazing and we're all proved wrong because they're just too good offensively, or as you say, it could be like a first round exit for them. Do you know what I mean? It could genuinely could, if they meet a team that beats them offensively.
One thing that could happen, as I said, you've got to look at yourselves, for example, on the Bucks. I just mentioned them too. You've got Miami, when you've got players that can do it on both ends, so you've got Bam offensively and defensively, you've got Giannis both sides, you've got Joel both sides, you've got Simmons both sides. What I'm saying is, they can't stop anything. So you're scoring at will. And then you've also got Simmons you can put on Durant. You've got Simmons you can put on Harden. You've got Bam you can put on Durant to bother him. You've got Giannis you can put on Durant for length. So what I'm saying is, they can't stop anything. And then if you get a couple of stops here and then, and suddenly then they find themselves in a 20-point hole. I know you can say that, yeah, they have got the best players. If you was ever in that position, other than maybe the peak Warriors, you'd be like, no lead safe with them. But they get down in a hole, they can't stop the bleeding. Like I think even Kyrie said that we can't guard a parked car. And I was just like cracked up. And I was just like, yeah, I know. Like it's going to be, they are going to be box office. But I see if a trade doesn't happen, and I think they'll try it, but they're not going to do like a big one like I said about maybe moving Kyrie, because I don't think they've got the balls, and I think they come as a package. But it's going to be
the true test comes for the Nets in the playoffs, right? That's when a defense actually locks up. Yeah. Because right now they're not getting any intensity. They're teams that
they're not even facing.
You know, some teams might lock him for a couple minutes, but you're not getting that full game of locked in defense. So I think we're not going to know what the Nets are truly like until the first.
This could be too late by that point, though. Could be too late.
Exactly it. And this is why it's such a difficult question to answer, because it can literally go either way. Because we also haven't really seen enough of the three of them together yet. There's always been, Kyrie was out for a while, and now KD's out with his protocols, etc. So I think giving them time to click. I think Harden sort of understood his role pretty well there when they have been together. It's not all about the ISO stuff and scoring big. I think he's been, his assists are way up, I believe. So I think
he said that today. I think he said today he went. I think done an interview and he said, "I'm relieved with Houston. I had to score 40 a night for us to win." He goes, "It's quite refreshing not having to score that much."
But he was like that when he first joined the Rockets. Yeah. It wasn't all Harden ball. I know he had the lion's share of it, but it just became Harden's team more as time went on, didn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough one. Bob, what do you think? Are you giving this?
It's really tough, isn't it? Because who knows? I'm going to give you it. I'm going to give you it just based on that stat alone. Just based on the historic effect and historic defense is just like I swing more towards good defensive teams winning things, as we saw with the two finalists in the game in the bubble. So
I think the Cavs, the year that LeBron dragged them to the finals. I'm not sure it was 3-1. 3-1, and they were so historically bad defensively, but nowhere near as bad as this, like right on the cusp. But they just had LeBron, so it didn't matter. But every other team has had the least middle of the pack. It's normally 10 and 10. You look at the Spurs when they had Kawhi and things like that.
Yeah, I'm going to give you it because I think of that reason. It could swing if they do some business or they figure out something defensively. But right now, I think I can't not give it to you because the signs are there, aren't they? The warnings are there right now.
Yeah, it's that's completely fair enough. It's difficult for me because my last one was wherever James Harden goes, he'll win a championship.
Come on, hypocrite!
And immediately I'm going to say, am I going to say, well, no, he's not now because of what we've seen.
Because that's because you thought he was going to the Heat, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I'd given up by then.
You know what they say? Die with a liar.
Well, no, listen. It's very difficult to argue it because
50-50.
The stats are there, but the fact that we haven't seen enough of the three together, the fact that they won't really care, as I said, where they see, they'll take anybody, wherever the regular season they'll be playing at 50%, and once those three step up, I still just don't see, regardless of how their defensive frailties will upset them, once those three get in a rhythm. There's an argument here to say you couldn't ask for three better players to be put together on an offensive to get your offense going, because Kyrie is just a magician. You've got arguably one of the best shooters in history, and then you've got arguably the most complete player in the NBA today. So those three, I still believe in them once they become playoff intensified. So it's very tough, but I'm just going to say no. So you've got one.
And also, you are friends with the UK Nets guy, so I know.
Yeah, Matt's a great guy.
I know Matt's looking ever going.
So 1 out of 2, mate. That's not bad. You're now on 3 for the season. Okay, my take. Here we go. Zach Lavine is a top 15 player in the NBA right now.
Blasphemous.
Okay, that's it might be a little bit of a stretch, but
I'm going to hear it. I'm dying to hear this.
Here we go. All right, so Zach Lavine at the moment is averaging career highs across the board, 28 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists per game this season. That is up on every single category in his career. He has also improved every single year in all scoring categories, except 2017 was the only year that he went down by a couple of points per game. So every year since he's entered the NBA, I think this is his 6th year, he has improved, and he's improving again and taking this leap. He has to be an all-star this year, has to be an all-star. Athletically, he is obviously one of the best players in the league, 2-time slam dunk champion. His build, his physique is absolutely superb. You know, from what he can give you athletically, I think that there's only 1 or 2 that can rival him in the league at the moment. He is in his prime. He's only 25 years old. 25 years old, which I didn't know. That's incredible. So if he continues to leap like this, he's going to be a very special player, without a doubt. Now, for me, a lot of people would sort of compare him with Bradley Beal, maybe a Bradley Beal light slightly, but a lot of people would automatically put Bradley Beal in their top 15. I'm assuming you two would have Bradley Beal in your top 15 NBA. I certainly would, around that periphery anyway. Well, apart from a couple of points per game, Zach Lavine is beating him in all those stats. And this is, I know that Washington are a bad team. They're a losing team. But so are Chicago. Chicago have been nothing more than an average team all year. So he has been carrying this team. I think if you put him in a winning team, then what again? I think his jump will be, again, it would take another leap. So I think that needs to be considered. The fact that he's on a bad team, and if you put him on a winning team, he would improve once again. Now, defensively is the only thing that a lot of people will point the finger at, is you have to be that two-way player to be in that bracket. Now, you look at the top 10 players in the league, all of them are exceptional. Pretty much all of them are exceptional at both ends. Zach Lavine isn't right now. Defensively, he isn't great. The stats would back that up. But he has got a willingness. He is showing that this year, if he is to be considered one of the best in the league, that is something that he has to improve on. Now, the metrics, the scoring, doesn't really show that. He has it. I think his defensive rating of 117, which is low. You know, for example, Bradley Beal was around that same sort of category. But if you look at it from an eye test point of view, you know, he has got it in him. Like, very recently, he played up against the Mavericks. He held Doncic, held him to 6 points in the second half. 3 steals in that game as well. So it isn't always just about the metrics. He's showing that he needs to improve that side of his game. I think if he does that, I think right now, with his scoring ability, which is going through the roof, I believe that he right now is on that periphery. He is just inside that top 15 players. Now, if you look at the top 10, they're pretty set in stone. AD, KD, LeBron, Giannis, Curry, Harden, Embiid, Jokic, Dame, Doncic. They're the ones that you would say set in stone. After that, I'll put in, Kawhi as well, sorry. Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, and then Tatum. After that, you're then at that 15th point. I think that he edges out at this moment in time people like Paul George for me. That might be a bit of a shout, but that's what I believe. So my take is that Zach Lavine, on that basis, is a top 15 player. Just. Who wants to kick off?
I'll go, Bob.
All right. so just so I get this straight, you're just saying right now in terms of form mainly, or are you saying
he's up there?
I think at the moment he's up there because form can come and go, and I know he's on a hot streak, especially at the moment. But okay, so from what I've just said, the fact that every year his numbers are going up, and he's now putting up career stats, and they are the same sort of stats as we're looking at Bradley Beal, who a lot of people would say would be a lock for a top 15. I think that Zach should be in that conversation.
I'm not actually going to knock you for that, because the guy's in unreal form on a bad team has a better record than Bradley Beal that everyone's talking about. As you know, is he still the top scorer in the league? Bradley Beal, has he dropped off now?
No, he's still top. But why? Why? I think.
Yeah, and I'm not going to knock you off that, but I think the question you've got to ask yourself sometimes when I try and do my top 15, like you're talking about better than Paul George, right? Now ask me, who would you rather on the Heat? right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I mean, it's a little bit difficult for me because I actually think that Paul George is arguably the most overrated player in the league. I'm not saying he's not a bad player.
Overpaid.
I just think he's overrated. So there's a lot of question marks. I'm not maybe the best to answer because I'm not his biggest fan. But I do understand what you're saying. In terms of a fit, yes, of course, the Heat would be better with George. But personally, I think that's my argument. I think that he creeps inside it for me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a tough one because you're making really valid points. The guy, as you say, what we look for in good NBA players is growth every year, and he's doing that. Like that's hats off to him. He's doing it on a bad team as well. Sorry, any Bulls fans that might be watching, but he's doing it. I think for him to be considered on that level, we need to either see him elevate on that team. You know, the best sort of top 15 players, you know, Tatum could put a team on his back. You know, all those players you talk about can put a game on their back. Now, we've seen snippets of Lavine doing it, haven't we? Where, you know, what was it, that ridiculous Charlotte game? Was it Charlotte?
Yeah,
where
he
single-handedly, I mean,
like 11 seconds left or something stupid.
I think when you're getting into that top 15 brackets, all of those players that you mentioned are a player that can win a game on their own. They can put the team on their back. Do you see what I'm saying? So I've not seen enough. Yeah, what I'm seeing this season is he's going from a player that I thought was just a good player, and we are in that discussion that actually Lavine is becoming a great player. No doubt about it. So I'm not saying that you're miles off. It's not a scalding hot take or anything like that, which we'll get to the answer. I just think I haven't seen enough yet. And I think it is tough, isn't it? It's tough because it's like, I want to see him do it in the postseason, but it's hard when you've got a crap team. So that, there's putting a team on your back, but then there's putting an absolute garbage team on your back.
And this is the reason why we're seeing Zach Lavine and Bradley Beal storm off most games, because they're putting up 40-point games and more and then still losing. And that's the point, is how good of a player have you got to be to actually turn them into wins? You do need that help. So you could put Kawhi on Wizards or something. I still don't know if they're a playoff team. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not knocking Lavine too much, because there's only so much a guy can do. So when I say put a team on their back, I'm not saying he has to LeBron the Cavs all the way to the. But I just think that at this moment in time, I just think he needs to show it for the rest of the season at least for that discussion. But all right, Chris.
Kind of gave my answer away, but you know what I mean.
No, fine. That's right, Chris.
Bob covered most of it. When you look at on form, he absolutely is, and as I said, he's not. I even looked at. We all laugh about his efficiency. I mean, in the Clippers game where he had the chance to tie it and he shot an air ball, and it's just like, it was like, oh my God, he's got like 42 points. And then we looked at him, I thought, I ain't too bad. I went, when I watch, he seems to take a rack shots, and it was just an inbound and then just an off balance free, and it like airballed it. And I'm like, there we go. That's what he does. He takes really low percentage shots. On form, absolutely, he's absolutely on a tear. But I would probably have him around 20, something like that. But what he's become, rather than just a flashy player, like putting, as I said, the balls on his back in some games. One thing I will say though, these numbers he's got, and they actually are quite efficient in a way. I think he's like 41% from three and over 50% from the field. I looked
51% from the field. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, over his last 18 games, there was 10 games where he shot 24 to 26 times. So. Like, I know you thinking someone's got to take them shots. Like, if you've got a poor team, then you want them taking the shots. What I'm saying is, if you're putting up 40, 38, 37, you think they're monster numbers. But when you're taking 25 shots,
the usage,
like, I'm not saying you still got to make them, but it's not like he's doing it on 15 shots and he's just like lights out kind of thing. So it's amazing the player he's become. I probably wouldn't have him quite that high. But what he's developing into though is like the perfect like number two. Like if you put him next to a superstar, which you would never have, you might have had him as a third or fourth role player. But I get the one thing you would have to say is though, if he goes to another contending team, like what Sixers had, where there's only one ball when you had the famous team, obviously the year before last, they've got so many elite players that want the ball. If he's joins the Clippers, or he was at the Lakers, or he was with the Heat, for example, he wouldn't get the same amount of shots and you wouldn't have that same opportunity. So he's everything. The team's built around him. He can pretty much do what he wants, and he does deserve better. But
and he's up at the end of the year, isn't he? So
I want to see the Bulls are a huge, as I said, franchise, and I'd like to see them get better. And they've obviously put a decent coach in finding and stuff like that. But I just can't see how they keep him. And he's now earned, for me, he's grown up. At Minnesota, he was still a bit so-so. He'd done his ACL, thought it was quite bad. Then he still come back and won a dunk contest. And then he's gone to Chicago. And now, as I said, last season, you go, oh, he's had a few like eye-catching games. And now this season, it's just like, last game he put up like 45. And it's just like, you look at the splits, they're pretty decent. It's just like, it's really impressive what he's doing. But on form, I would say he is. But when I look at around that top 20 bracket, top 15 bracket, it's established, especially the top 10, it's established. It's like a lot.
There's 10, 11 players now that are just in a league of their own.
They'll forever be there in the league because just their quality's there. But for form, he is, and he's trending there, which is quite scary considering where he is and how much better he could be. But one thing I'd say to be in mind is where he is and how much usage he gets. He probably has the ball 30-40% of the time in his hands, like every possession, like James Harden did. So when he goes, if he signs for a Sixers, for example, or a Heat, like balls in Butler's hands, balls in Simmons' hands, like you might have it in big shot games, but you can pretty much probably cut them attempts a third, maybe in half. And then we'll see what kind of player he is, because then he'll be facing, as I said, the real high pressure moments. He's never in these clutch moments with the Bulls because they're just not in the moments.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's amazing. I never saw him being this player. Never saw him being this player. And that's a testament to himself, especially on that team, really. But yeah, maybe a touch below, but he's okay. It's scary what he's trending to, though. To be fair,
yeah, definitely. The rise is there, so hopefully, if he can continue that metric and be rewarded with an All-Star, because I think he deserves it this year, definitely. So,
he should have been last year, in my opinion. So he definitely will be this year.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I think I know where this is going, but Bob, Zach Lavine is a top 15 player. Yes or no?
I'm going to give you a no, and just to finish up on that, it's just purely, it's hard because I think if Zach Lavine could go to any of the NBA teams that aren't the Chicago Bulls, not many teams would say no to Zach Lavine. So that's hard to then say he's not a top 15 player, because that shows you how many. I think there wouldn't be many teams if they had the cap space that wouldn't say no. So it is hard, Dan, because I don't think you're far off, but for now, it's just a no for where he is right now.
Okay, bit of a stretch, no probs. Chris, same for you, I'm assuming.
Just quickly to touch on Bob, the mad thing is, Bob, if you asked that question at the start of the season, they wouldn't been like, oh, any team would really take it. It would be like, it'd still be a gamble. Whereas what they've seen this season, that just shows how much of a leap he's made. The fact teams would be like, we'll take him and we'll give up blah, blah, blah for him.
We could certainly be talking about him as a top 15 player if he carries on like this, definitely.
If he
finishes the season like this, I think that, then I think it becomes a lot clearer. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, I assume it was no.
All jokes aside, as I said, we're like joking about it, but I'm going to say no, but only just. Like, as I said, the start of the season, we have this, we would be laughable. I think, we did a mock one a few months back and probably had him, 25 to 30, maybe just outside 30. And that just shows that if you listen to the people in between it, that he's jumps now, you think we were crazy. But that now shows that I don't have him that far out, maybe 5-7 places out of what you said, which you ask that question, you think that sounds mental, him being a top 15 player. But if he does join, hopefully a contender or a better team, and he shows the same efficiency against elite defenses, then it isn't long before we turn around and go, yeah, you were right. So just no.
So two just no's, which still equals 0. So absolute bollocks to both of you.
So hang on a minute.
Good work.
We've done episode 2, and Chris is still the only one to score a point.
Pretty much, mate.
Right, we need to get Chris to get some more hot takes going on.
Do your research.
Right. Okay. So the leaderboard looks like, Chris has 3 points now after 2 weeks. Me and Bobby both still stationed on 0, yet to get off the mark. But that'll do us for this week's top Tepid Takes. We'll do another one in a fortnight's time. Again, apologies for the long delay. It took a long time getting over COVID, but we're there now. Content pouring out lots quicker. Chris, where can everybody find you on the Twitter sphere, mate?
CJ Howard 88. Find me on there if you fancy ranting to me or hearing my rants about the Raptors, and then maybe blocking a couple of days later.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, Chris defends his boys.
No one will talk to me. No one will talk to me. I'm just ranting to myself.
And Bob, where about you, mate?
You can find me on Twitterverse at @SixersBobby_. moaning about my team 24/7.
Yeah, well, not so much at the moment because you're doing very, very well. So we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. Until then, guys, Chris, top of the leaderboard when we'll hope to close that gap in a fortnight's time. Till then, stay safe. We'll see you soon.
See ya.